This program is a collaboration of personal opinions and individual free thought. It does not represent the views or narrative of the mainstream corporate media hacks. Viewer discretion is advised.
And here we go.
Live from the bell tower, taking a stand for your rights, your liberties, and all the bullshit in between. You're listening to Ring the Bell Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
We're back.
we're back. And it is 9/11, and happy 9/11. Is that what you say on today?
I don't know if that's a happy.
You don't know if
I
that's
think
what you say? Like what do you say on 9/11? Like, sad 9/11?
Well, yeah, I definitely think you have to give something gold. That
I mean, we notice you. We
Yes.
recognize you,
Yes.
9/11. How
Yes.
about that?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that
We do
acceptable?
the kind of sly little nod across the parking lot towards
You know.
9/11.
You
Yes.
know.
If you know, you
9/11 knows. George
Yeah.
Bush knows.
Yes,
You know.
I know.
It is September 11th, 2023. 22 years? 22 years after.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as driving. I was like, damn, I was 25 years old when this happened.
I was
A long time
15.
ago.
I was 15,
You were
and you're
15?
old as fuck.
I am.
Yeah.
True.
So, it is 9/11. All the questions have not been answered, and we're not going to be spending this
No, we
episode
did
to
that
answer
last
those
time.
questions.
We did that last
Did we
year.
do that last
Yeah,
time?
we did. We did.
Derek Ambrose is here and
Hi, Derek.
says Missouri passed a law this week that makes touching a phone or other device while driving a misdemeanor.
A misdemeanor?
So yeah, I'm breaking the law to troll you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's dedication.
You know what? I feel like if it wasn't for 9/11, there wouldn't be laws like this Missouri law.
I agree
out
with
there.
that. Yes, yes.
Like
9/11 started it all.
9/11 was like the cusp
Yes.
of our
Hey,
great government as it is
yes.
today.
Yeah, and I read an article about that today about how 9/11 was kind of the beginning of the end.
Well, we're going to talk about how 9/11 is the beginning of the end because 9/11 was, in fact, the beginning of the end.
Grumpy
So-
Gnome was 30, so
Grumpy
it's-
Gnome, you were 30, so Bill was not the oldest
No,
bastard on this live stream right now. So, good to have you both on, Derek and Grumpy. Do you go by Grumpy or Gnome or Mr. Gnome or
Mr. Grumpy.
Mr. Grumpy? I don't know. It's good to have you both in the chats. It makes this this wonderful holiday just that much more special to us. So we are here. It is 9/11. We're going to talk about it. It's not going to be your typical, like, here, let's go back and
Right, yeah.
recap
Where
on
were you
9/11.
and
Where
how did
were
it
you?
change you?
And we
Because
did that. We've
we
probably
did
done
that.
it at least
Yeah,
twice in the
probably,
last
yeah.
3 years. So it doesn't fucking matter where we were. It happened. It came. It went. And it was like the greatest attack on U.S. democracy as we know it.
Well,
not
January 6th.
No,
January
no, wait.
6th. Yes.
I'm not talking about the towers or the planes
Oh.
or even the Arabs or I don't know
Yes.
Taliban or
Taliban. Yes.
the whatever
Al
Al
Qaeda.
Qaeda. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What came after that with
the Patriot Act.
the Patriot Act
Yes.
and all the
TSA.
the gross expansion of the U.S. government.
Yes.
The TSA, like you said, having to get really felt up good at the airport.
right,
I
yeah.
mean, we didn't know what we were missing
Right.
until we got post 11 felt up at the airport. I
right.
mean, nobody knew until the rubber gloves
You
went
take
on
your
after.
shoes off. You can't
Right.
take a bottle of water.
Right. I remember I had to throw out a lighter. It was a novelty lighter. Somebody had given it to me, and it was in my pocket. It was like a deck of cards that you just like flip one
Yeah.
card, and it would light.
I
And I had to throw that fucker away.
I did sneak a pocket knife on once. only because I realized I had it at the last moment, so I stuck it down
And
really deep.
You stuck it in your bum, didn't you?
I did.
That must have been
in my prison wallet.
Must have been before the hands up, like full body
Yeah.
scan your junk scanners, like
Well, you
radiate your junk.
You just act like you're really enjoying it, and then it just
gotcha.
like makes them want to hurry
You're like,
that much.
oh
further.
yeah, and they're
Ooh,
like,
ooh,
okay,
little
this
bit more
guy,
to the left.
this guy's good. But yeah, 9/11, greatest attack on democracy by our own government.
Right.
Not saying that our government did it, even though they probably did.
Yes.
That's for another show, another time. But our own government expansion through the use of emergency powers, through the use of legislative powers.
Yes.
The Patriot Act wasn't even an emergency power; it was a legislative power. Just decimated constitutional rights, our Fourth Amendment rights. We're going to talk about all this shit.
Because what's a little freedom, in terms of safety for the populace,
Right.
right?
What would you prefer, safety or freedom?
Right.
And what's that age-old quote that's like,
Yeah, if you sacrifice freedom for safety, you deserve neither.
yes, that's the one. That one right there. Derek Ambrose says, my son somehow got coke through customs coming from the Dominican into the U.S.
Like cocaine?
From the Dominican, so
Wow.
probably cocaine. I would assume that it's not. Well, I guess you
Coca-Cola.
couldn't take bigger than like 3-ounce bottles of Coca-Cola, so
Yes.
maybe it was Coca-Cola. I don't know. Just abuse of powers.
Yes.
We're going to talk about a lot of abuse of powers, especially emergency powers, because they're there.
Yes.
And brought to you by 9/11 mostly, I think.
I think so too.
I mean, emergency powers have existed. Did you know there's still emergency powers
yeah.
on the books
Well,
from the Iran kidnapping thing?
that doesn't
The student
surprise me.
kidnap. We still have emergency declarations or whatever that we're exercising based on that incident. What was that? The 70s?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
39 years
Oh,
ago or something like
yeah,
that?
Late 70s, yeah. That doesn't surprise me.
So you think that these powers give them the broad reach to like exercise special powers or like kind of make it up on the spot
Right.
during a time of an emergency, and
Yeah.
when the emergency ends, they got to give those powers
Well-
back. But the thing is, you just don't give don't end the state of emergency, then you don't ever have to give the
Isn't
power
that
back.
kind of what they did with COVID, though?
Well, they did, but they ended up ending the COVID one because they wanted to kind of stick it to Congress, to the
Right.
Republican Congress. They're like,
Yes.
well, we're ending the emergency powers, so you gotta like increase the budget or whatever. You gotta,
Right.
I don't know, or like erase student debt because we're
yeah.
So there was more of one of those carrots,
end.
the carrot
Well,
that they're
look
dangling.
how much Trump fucked up the economy.
Right, exactly. So we're going to talk about all this stuff. We're getting way fucking ahead
Yeah.
of ourselves. But
I-
9/11,
yes, I knew where you were going.
happy 9/11.
Sure.
We're probably going to bitch a lot this episode. Which
Well, we missed a week, so
we
we
did
gotta
miss.
make up
We
for
got
that.
a lot to bitch about,
Yeah.
and it's not even the typical like, oh, there's a war going on in Ukraine, and fucking Mitch McConnell had a stroke, and he still thinks he can throw Ukraine down our throats,
yeah.
even though majority of the Americans don't want it anymore. It's like, how's that fucking guy even thinking? First of all, but
Right.
we're not talking about Ukraine. We're not. We'll probably talk about COVID a little just
Right.
because
Well,
of
it's kind of
the
starting to come
implications
around
here.
again, you know?
Well, and the implications with the emergency
Yeah.
powers and stuff. I have titled this episode "The Epidemic of Emergency Powers" or the pandemic. Epidemic of emergency powers.
Yes.
Right, it's right there.
I know
So
what you're talking about.
we'll discuss why. We'll get there. Today is brought to you by us. If you like what we're doing, if you've stumbled across us, make sure you check out some of our other episodes, our other shows. We can be found on YouTube and all the podcast platforms. We are the Break the Bell podcast. You can find old ones. You can go back and listen to last year's 9/11 episode if you want to hear about where we were and what our
I
thoughts
think we're a
were
little
on
bit
that.
more reflective during that one.
I probably, and conspiratorial too, I'm sure,
Of course.
because
You always got to throw a little bit of that in.
right, exactly. You can also check us out all over the social medias, on Facebook, on Instagram. Well, I mean, we have an Instagram, but neither of us really keep up on it anymore. You can find us on Twitter or X or whatever Elon Musk is fucking calling it these days, at the handle @BreakTheBellPod. We also have a Facebook forum, which is the Breaking the Bell Forum, which you can come and join and chat and have a good time. Otherwise, you can find links to everything we do at our website, which is www.breakthebellpod.com. Find links to kick-ass merch and
Cool t-shirt.
cool t-shirts, coffee mugs and shit like that. And also, like I said, links to all our social media and episodes and stuff. So on that note, I just want to probably get right into this show and talk because I mean we already just shot down down the rabbit hole. I'm just like, we're still in the pre-show here, so we gotta get we gotta get into the show. So we're gonna kick off this intro video, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about fucking emergency powers, and they're literally fucking like they're fucking us with emergency powers. We'll be right back.
What did you say?
You talking to me?
What the heck are you talking about?
What did you say? What did you say? What did you say?
Are you talking to me?
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
What did you say?
What did you say?
Are you talking to me?
Well, maybe he was talking to me.
What did you say?
Talk to me.
What in heaven's name are you talking about?
Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me, baby.
Did you just say?
What did you say?
You listen to me. You're talking to me.
Are you talking to me?
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
Today
Yes.
memorializes, like we said, memorialize. That's the word I was kind of looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
Celebrate. 22 years ago, I have written here completely changed the trajectory of our country.
I
You
agree with
said
that.
you said it. What did you say?
Beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end. Explain that. Why? Like, who said that? Who was it that said that?
I'm trying to remember where I don't even remember where I read
No,
that.
it's a
But I think
terrible
it was-
source.
May have been Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, okay. But explain your reasoning why it's the
Well,
beginning of the end.
because I mean, like you said, it was probably the biggest expansion of powers from since like frickin' oh crap, who's the crappy president we had before Nixon? Johnson.
Johnson. Yeah.
Yes, since
That's the
Johnson's
one.
war on poverty. You know, and so it was this rapid expansion for security's sake, right?
Right.
And not only that, but it gave government the ability to move behind the scenes against perceived threats. They started listening, following emails, and
Not
all,
just
all for
listening and
security.
following emails. Massive collection of data, like just. We've talked about the NSA and the Edward Snowden project, the project he exposed, not his project, but how it's just like a dragnet of data, and it's just like, well, yeah, there's billions and billions of stuff, and they knew what they were looking for, but the fact was that they could collect it without telling you that hey, we're collecting your fucking data, we're collecting everything that you do on the internet, from your browser history to your emails to who you called and when you called them, and if we feel like it's necessary to use that against you, we're going to use it against you. But we're just going to keep it on the side burner just in case something comes up. We're not gonna abuse it by any stretch unless you do something wrong.
And the problem with it is the American people were like, well, if I'm not doing anything wrong, then what's the big deal, right?
But the thing is, that is the sentiment that gets us to where we are today.
Exactly.
It's
It's a slippery slope.
It's not even a slippery. It's just a fucking cliff you
just
dive
a
off of.
drop
It's
off.
just like, hey, if you're not doing anything wrong, it's just gonna sit here and we're gonna destroy it later on down the road after 90 days. Or no bullshit. They're gonna save it and use it against you later.
Right.
And the fact is, it's warrantless. Therefore, it's completely opposed to the Fourth Amendment of.
Well, and they have the special Pfizer courts, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where they don't even have to tell you what it is they're going to warrant for. They just take it in front of you and be like, well, we suspect this guy might be a little shady.
We had a warrant, obviously. Derek Ambrose says everyone's emails except Clinton's, apparently.
Right.
Yes. Apparently they can't find those, but they can find everybody else's.
Yeah.
So 9/11 kicked all this off. Yeah, I mean, we can't gloss over the fact nearly 3,000 people died. I mean, that is sad.
It is. Yes.
We can't like gloss over the fact that somebody perpetrated a major attack
back
on
up. 3,000 people that day that springboarded a 20-year-old war that killed millions of others.
Right, exactly. I mean, but I'm just saying we can't gloss over the fact that that happened.
Right.
But everything that followed that, do you think the outcome matched the initial
Oh, fuck no.
instance?
Yeah, no.
I mean, at what
I
point?
mean, the outrage of people at the time.
I mean,
right? It
during
was like, yeah, bomb them, make glass.
I mean, look at like back in the 50s or whatever, during the Red Scare, during the blacklist and shit, where they're just like, well, everybody's the enemy. If you say anything that's kind of anti-American, you're the enemy. I mean, at what point can you justify even emergency powers now, where it's just like, well, our nation's under attack. We just gotta suspect people. We just gotta like shut things down. Like, is martial law ever a? Is there ever a moment where martial law should be implemented, or emergency powers like that should be implemented because of the threat to our country or whatever?
No.
I don't think so.
Anything that takes away from freedom, no, not at all.
I agree, but I mean there are cases. I'm not saying there is reason for people, I guess, to suggest that if I don't even fucking know. I can't justify it in my head, but other people's justification. Well, at a time of war, we have to be able to like mobilize things and like direct communications or direct certain like manufacturing towards the war effort. So the government does have to step up and take on certain responsibilities that aren't like peacetime responsibilities. I mean, end the fucking wars, and we don't have that argument, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is, again, 9/11, biggest attack on U.S. democracy.
Yes.
Not because what George Bush said, that they hate us because they hate our freedom.
Right.
No, our own government hates us because they hate our fucking freedoms. Right. Our own government was trying to implement some of these regulations or some of these intelligence laws before 9/11 ever happened.
Right.
They were all, the majority of the Patriot Act had to have been written up long before 9/11 happened. They're like, well, we can't drop this.
I mean,
on them
the
right
whole
now.
90s was a war against right-wing extremists, right?
Right.
We did a whole show about that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We talked about how the 90s was kind of the last hurrah of the anti-big government sentiment, and then 9/11 happened, and then you don't dare be like anti-government because then you're going to be lumped right in with the brown folk and stuff. So, what was I saying?
You're talking about how it was attack on our freedoms because they hated our
They hate
freedoms. The government.
Yeah. They had this all written up.
Yeah.
This like big old freaking Patriot Act thing, and they're like, well, we can't just drop it on them right now, because then we're just gonna prove to them what the right wing or whatever, quote unquote right wing extremists, the anti-government folk, we're just fueling that fire by saying, well, the government's getting too big. Well, guess what? We got to get bigger to fight the people that say, no, you can't just do that because that might not look good. But 9/11 happens. It's like, you know what?
Yeah,
this would be the perfect opportunity to do it. Whether it was a foreign attack or something that was a little more premeditated by our own. I'm not getting into that, but they, in the very least, again, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Right.
Let's drop this Patriot Act. Let's start fishing through. I mean, this was early days of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so the government started to realize, hey, we can get a lot of information off people on the internet.
Yeah.
Think 2001, how much data you could get off a person just over the internet versus today, how much.
Oh, jeez.
And the same principles apply. Yes, they did shut down certain programs after Edward Snowden, but they just rolled over to a different name under a different guise, and they're still collecting the data. Now they just have the companies doing it for them. The NSA doesn't have to do it because Google, Facebook, Twitter, they'll all do it for them, and then they'll be their data servers, so they don't even have to pay for the server space anymore.
And now they're tracking your money too.
Well,
right?
obviously.
Because what was Biden's big deal that he passed where they can track up to $600 in your bank account or anything over $600?
Yeah.
86,000 more IRS
Joke's
agents.
on you. I never have more than $600 in my account.
Right.
That's obviously intentional. just to fuck the government, not because I'm fucking poor. Let's talk about the most well-known massive overreach, which is the Patriot Act. Let's dig into that a little bit. This is from Time Magazine, and it's titled "How 9/11 Radically Expanded the Power of the U.S. Government." Is that like good radical or bad radical? Because there's a bunch of different kinds of radical.
I would say bad.
So this came out on September 11th of 21. So this was exactly 20 years after 9/11 happened. It says 2 decades ago. I got to pull this up. My computer is really glitching out. Do we sound good? Hopefully we sound good.
No echoes.
Well, if you do that, they're just going to... God damn it, Bill. All right. It'll pull up eventually. It says 2 decades ago, the deadly terror attacks on 9/11 changed nearly all aspects of human life. Culture shifted. Imbued with heightened levels of fear, the U.S. launched costly, deadly wars. Congress, what the hell? What is happening? Congress passed sweeping legislation. The government profiled and watched its own citizens, ushering in a new era of mass surveillance. One of the most significant and lasting changes was a massive expansion of executive power that transformed entire portions of America's legal landscape. Within months of the attack, the George W. Bush administration had authorized spying on Americans, a new secretive military tribunal system, and begun secretly detaining men from Muslim and Arab countries. There have been attempts to roll back some of these policies in the years since, but many post-9/11 developments have remained in place, impacting America's use of force abroad, immigration and surveillance policies, and the delicate balance of separation of powers. So a lot of the shit is still in effect today, is what they're saying. These changes altered the way Congress, the judiciary, and the presidents interact and reshape the relationship many Americans have with their own government. Administrations took aggressive actions in the name of protecting their citizens. Hey, does that kind of sound like 2020?
Right. Yeah. This is for you guys.
Yeah, reshape in the name of protecting your citizens. But as revelations emerged detailing some of the abuse that ensued, public distrust in American institutions has risen. One of the defining questions of the post-9/11 legal landscape has become how to negotiate protecting national security with managing swelling presidential power and rebuilding confidence in the American government itself. I feel like we're long past the point of rebuilding trust in the American government itself.
Yeah, that's ship has sailed.
I thought this broke down the... Am I on the wrong? I'm on the wrong fucking one. That's all right. So you kind of catch my drift there. Mm-hmm. I pulled up the wrong one apparently. That's all right. We'll keep going. It says there's just no easy institutional avenue to rein in the accretion of power in the executive branch through the coordination of the three branches, says Scott Anderson, senior editor of Lawfare, who served in the State Department under President Barack Obama. Now, how sad is that when you got to say, we've gotten to the point where there's just no pulling it back.
Right.
Through the use of the three branch.
But that's how it always goes, though.
Checks and balance
whenever
system.
there's a huge expansion, it has never shrunk back.
No.
They've always taken it and just ran with it, right?
You know what you do to balance it back out is you expand the legislative next, and then you expand the judiciary next,
So
and
you
then
got to keep it even.
Yeah,
right?
but you expand them a little more, so then the executive can be like, now they're bigger than us, so we got to expand, and then so they just balloon up individually. Just that's what they consider checks and balances is continued expansion on all three of, and I mean we're to the point where
we're fucked.
Well, are checks and balances even really a thing? Like,
Well, but here's the thing, though.
is the legislative body actually keeping the executive in check? Unless the executive happens to be on the other side of the party lines as them.
I think that's the thing, that it's so merged together with party lines. It's just like this orgy of power.
Right.
And so no, they don't. They actually lift each other up and support each other to take that power.
Yeah, it's just like, I'll let you have that power if you let me have this power.
Right, exactly.
And even the judiciary at this point is like, well, I'm a Republican. It's like, but you're not.
But they're so manipulated. I mean, when you have the Democratic Party being like, well, we'll just add to the Supreme Court. You know, we'll make it so huge. You know, it's like, all right, great.
There's just no easy institutional avenue to rein in the accretion of power in the executive branch through the coordination of the three branches. I think the big question we're going to face over the next few years is, how do you recalibrate? I know a great way to recalibrate.
Burn it down and start over.
Burn it fuck down.
Yeah.
Vote for freaking Josh Smith because he's going to burn it all the fuck down. Lay them all off. Yeah. All that shit that he talked about a couple weeks ago.
Massive closing of different departments, the education department, the Fed. Close it all down.
It's clear that changing national security and what is going on? Everything keeps moving. Oh, jeez. I don't know what's happening. It's clear that changing national security interest over the past 20 years have dramatically reshaped aspects of the American law and presidential power. What's less clear is how to interpret those changes. The most potent weapon in preventing terrorist attacks is intelligence, says George Terwilliger, a member of the Conservative Federalist Society and the former Deputy Attorney General under George H.W. Bush. I think one of the legal legacies of 9/11 is the government's ability to collect that kind of information. The enhancement has been very important and needs to be maintained. So you still got people up there that are like, no, this is important. It's necessary in order to thwart the terrorists.
Right.
Which, how many terrorists have we really had since 9/11?
Well, we were out of the woods until J6 happened.
Well, obviously, yeah. Maybe it's because of that collection of data that we haven't had more terrorist attacks. Did you ever think about that? I got to get out of this article because it's just like popping up shit and driving me nuts. So, but this, like I said, brought rise to the Patriot Act, which is what I thought this one was about. But apparently, I pulled up the wrong article. But that talks about, like, there's 4 points, the article I was looking for. It's from the ACLU. It talks about, like, record searches, secret searches, intel searches, and trap and trace. Mm-hmm. And it gets into all of these. It kind of breaks them down. I wish I had that article because it was a good article.
Well, but you see...
Let me see if I can pull it up.
Kind of how it's happened with, I mean, they took out they had the wiretaps against Trump, right? That were warrantless, right? And then all of a sudden you got Biden using the FBI and the CIA. He's weaponized them against his political enemies, and you see how they're using that. If you and I became his enemy, which we probably are, they'd use them against us.
Well, yeah, anybody. I mean, you weaponize against your political opponents. You weaponize against people on the other side of the aisle as you. Yeah. You weaponize it use the same tactics that were used against terrorism, to say, hey, there's this big bad boogeyman at home now, and we can just revamp or just repurpose the Patriot Act to work against.
Well, and as the United States moves into a social credit system, like it will, it's going to have all that leverage it can use against its citizens that it feels is not falling in line.
Right. So I'm just going to read this from my phone because I have it on here. It's called Surveillance Act under the USA Patriot Act. And it talks about those 4 points, like record searches. It expands the government's ability to look at records on an individual's activity being held by a third party. Secret searches. It expands the government's ability to search private property without notice to the owner. 3 is intelligence services. It expands a narrow exception to the Fourth Amendment that had been created for the collection of foreign intelligence information. 4, trap and trace searches. It expands another Fourth Amendment exception for spying that collects addressing information about origin and destination of communications as opposed to the content. So the expanded access to personal records was number 1. Says one of the most significant provisions of the Patriot Act makes it far easier for authorities to gain access to records of citizens held by third parties. At a time when computerization is leading to the creation of more and more such records, Section 215 of the Patriot Act allows the FBI to force anyone at all, including doctors, libraries, bookstores, university, and internet service providers, to turn over records on their clients or customers. How's that make you feel? Your doctor,
right.
your Hippocratic Oath protected doctor medical information.
Yeah.
I assume if they can get it from doctors, I would think they'd be able to pull from lawyers too if it was deemed like a threat to national security. I mean,
right. It's same policy, right?
Right.
I mean, your confidentiality of health is same as, attorney-client privilege.
says the FBI does not even have to show a reasonable suspicion that the records are related to criminal activity, much less the requirements for probable cause that is listed in the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. All the government needs to do is make the broad assertion that the request is related to an ongoing terrorist or foreign intelligence investigation. That's all they got to say.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to prove that it's related. They don't have to have any sort of probable cause. They just got to say it's related to terrorism.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Guess we got to turn it over. Number 2, well, at first it goes in and says, what can the FBI demand to be turned over? Records. Any tangible thing, including books, records, papers, documents, and other items. Let's see. Number 2, more secret searches. For centuries, common laws required that the government can't go into your property without telling you and must therefore give you notice before it executes a search. The knock-and-announce principle has long been recognized as part of the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. The Patriot Act, however, unconstitutionally amends the federal rules of criminal procedure to allow the government to conduct searches without notifying the subjects, at least until long after the search has been executed. This means the government can enter your house, apartment, or office with a search warrant when the occupants are away, search their property, take photographs, and in some cases seize property and not tell you until later.
Yeah.
But they have a warrant, so it's fine.
Well,
they just don't have to show you the warrant.
Well, exactly.
And they can just...
But see, that's the problem, because typically in a legal search, warrant search, it has to specifically lay out like what area and what material it's going to search.
But you
right?
know they stretch around that.
Well,
They'll be like, oops,
right.
I accidentally bumped that, and I happen to notice
I
this.
know.
This thing broke. I better look and see.
But how much easier is it to do if you're not around?
Right, exactly. Right? And they don't even have to oops it. They
Yeah.
can just be like, oh, I just happened to see this thing laying out. Well, that wasn't. It was when I was there. I saw it, and
was
you
just
saw
laying
it
out.
too.
It
you
was
saw
just, the door was wide open, and it was sitting there.
Did you see it, Agent Filter?
Absolutely.
I saw it,
Yeah.
so it was there. So, number 3, expansion of the intelligence exception and wiretapping laws. Under the Patriot Act, the FBI can secretly conduct a physical search or wiretap on American citizens to obtain evidence of crime without proving probable cause, as the Fourth Amendment explicitly requires. So all of these, so far, have just said, fuck your Fourth Amendment.
Yeah.
Who cares?
fuck
It's
due
a
process.
state of emergency.
Right, exactly.
This is emergency.
You may
it
be a
doesn't
foreign
apply.
threat.
You could be a terrorist. I mean, you're not doing anything wrong, then why does it fucking matter if we're listening in on you?
Exactly.
Number 4, expansion of the pen register exception to the wiretap law. Another exception to the normal requirement for probable cause in the wiretap is also expanded by the Patriot Act. Years ago, when law governing telephone wiretaps was written, a distinction was created between 2 types of surveillance. The first allowed surveillance of the content or meaning of a communication, and the second only allows monitoring of the transactional or addressing information attached to a communication. I don't even know what that sounds like semantics there.
Probably.
It is like the difference between reading the address printed on the outside of a letter and reading the letter inside, or listening to a phone conversation and merely recording the phone numbers dialed and received. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wiretaps limited to transactional or addressing information are known as pen register trap trace searches. The requirement It says for devices that were used on telephones to collect telephone numbers. The requirements for getting a PRTT warrant are essentially non-existent. The FBI need not show probable cause or even reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. It must only certify to a judge without having to prove it that such a warrant would be relevant to an ongoing criminal investigation. And the judge doesn't even have the authority to reject the application. So they can track who you're talking to and what numbers you're dialing without a warrant or probable cause. They can't necessarily listen in on it, but they can track who it is you're calling and how long you called them and where you called from.
Right.
That kind of information. So what do you think so far of this Patriot Act in the name of preserving democracy from the
you can
evil
see
terrorists?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like wide open, basically.
Yeah, it's not even wide open. It's just like
well, it's
shit
just
on the
like,
Constitution.
Yeah, exactly. It's their huge loop around the Constitution and any rights or you may have.
Yeah, it's like you totally shit on the Fourth Amendment. Like the entire Patriot Act is just a massive dump on the Fourth Amendment.
Absolutely.
Like, do we even have under the rules of the Patriot Act? Why is the Fourth Amendment even in there anymore? And why at this point is nobody like? For example, the ACLU challenging this and being
sure
like,
the ACLU has.
it's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's in the Fourth Amendment. It's like, but the Patriot Act, during a state of national emergencies, the Patriot Act says that we can do this. And you know how emergency declarations work.
Yeah.
And they're like,
It's
wasn't that? But that was a post 9/11 emergency. Well, it's still.
Yeah.
Did you know? Did you know there's still the state of emergency?
Right.
Certain aspects of the state of emergency, Joe Biden has actually signed it back. Like, we're going to continue this post 9/11 state of emergency due to ongoing terrorist activity and the threat of ongoing terrorist activity. I am reinstituting this thing. Signed, Joseph Robinette Biden.
Well, and because after J6, they redefined terrorism.
Well, yeah.
For the whole thing, and then it just rebuilt onto the Patriot Act.
And there's still plenty of brown people out there in countries that we potentially might want to go to war with later, so we can't drop that.
Well, and there's a lot of white people over here they might want to go to war with.
Exactly. So, what do you think about the idea of the government searching your house? Right now, the government could be searching your
absolutely.
house. Is your wife home right now?
No.
Okay, so the FBI could be at your house right now going through your shit.
They could. Yes.
And maybe like 6 months down the road, after they arrest you, they can be like,
they'll have a whole case built against me.
We found this in your house under the search warrant.
Yeah.
And you're like, what search warrant? Oh, the one that we didn't have to show you at the time,
because
but we had it.
The fact that you ate that Libyan restaurant 3 times last week, we deemed you a threat.
Now, under that, how hard would it be to go just preemptively be like, this guy could be a problem, and then you go in there and you find some information there based on like some communication that you had, and then you go back and you're like, you kind of retrace it. It's like, well, we found this on the internet based on a search that you did, and then they backdate the warrant date and be like, we had a warrant to search your house based on this search. And you're like, well, I guess I did search this, but they didn't know that until they search your house.
With all
but they
the
could
shit we
backdate.
talk about on the show. I mean, who knows what they pull up? I got flagged on Facebook because a friend of mine posted that they had a big spider at their front door, and I wrote, "Burn it down." And Facebook sent me a note and be like, "This is potentially hostile."
It's anti-government sentiment. He said, "Burn it down." He's a proud boy. Do you remember a guy? Remember the guy by the name Edward Snowden that talked about the NSA collecting, who's now like probably a terrorist himself?
Yes.
He still can't come back to his country without
hiding out
fear
in
of being
Russia.
murdered. The stuff that he exposed and all this stuff, like the Patriot Act isn't even like the executive order stuff.
Right.
Like the overreach of the expansion of the executive branch that we talked about from that Time article.
The hundreds of bills that each president signs.
No, the
in
Patriot
executive order
Act
before.
was our legislative branch doing.
That was the overreach of the
writing law.
legislative.
That was them saying, "Oh, you don't worry, you don't have to use the executive pen. We'll do it for you."
And all the Americans cheered and was like, "Yeah, woo,
yeah."
You know,
Fuck them brown people.
And I told when I was when I took
I hope nobody clips that out.
Yeah,
and puts it.
It'd be like, this is Craig Smolt. But my ethics of law enforcement class, we discussed this, and I was the only person that had a problem with the Patriot Act. Everybody else in my class was like, well, I don't see an issue with this if
And
it
this
keeps
was what,
people
like
safe.
5 years ago?
Yeah.
So not even like post 9/11.
Yeah,
This
right,
was like
right.
post 9/11
Yeah,
when
kids that probably weren't even alive at that time, right?
Yeah, and well, they don't even fucking realize it because they just pick up their phone and download an app, and they're like, "Yes, collect all my data."
Yeah. Boom.
Just so I could play Flappy Birds, or well,
Yeah.
that dates me, Flappy Birds. Just so I could play. What do kids play? Do kids even play games anymore?
Roblox.
Okay.
I don't know. My daughter plays that.
I don't know. She's an old soul though.
That's true.
But yeah, like you don't need the Patriot Act when. Even like I'm sure we're guilty of it, but I always say that's one thing I like about Apple because I feel like I have control,
Yeah,
but I know
right.
I don't.
Yeah.
But when I hit Do Not Track, Apple gives you that chance.
Yeah.
They can be. I mean, I at least made the conscious effort to say don't, and I know for a fact they're like, "Fuck you, we're gonna do anyway."
Yeah, exactly right. What you can do about it?
But I at least feel like a little better about
I
it.
agree.
But we don't even need. What I was saying is we don't need the Patriot Act because kids are just like, nah, just take it. Oh, that's a cool video. Take my data so
Yeah.
I can watch that video of that cat like running into a wall.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, you're right. They have no concept.
yeah. The legislators from 22 years ago are looking on kids today and they're like, why did we work so hard?
I know, right? They just give that shit away.
We work so hard to cover up what we're doing, and now they're just handing it out,
Yeah.
and they don't even
We
fucking
just needed
care.
to wait 20 years.
And those are the same kids that are in your college class that are like,
Yeah.
who fucking cares?
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not doing anything. I'm not a terrorist, right?
Yeah, until you are.
Right.
Until you go against something.
Until they change the definition of it again.
Yeah, and then they're like, hey, remember that time you searched? Whoa, I didn't give you permission. But you did.
Yeah.
When you sat in that class and said, I'm not doing anything wrong, you spoon-fed the government your permission to do it. Back to Edward Snowden. He had called out some of the things like I was talking that I covered on the Patriot Act, but he talked about there was a few things. One was the NSA collecting call information from major carriers like AT&T, U.S. Cellular, Verizon, whoever the big ones were back then. They were just blanket grabbing all of your phone call. Like it's kind of like what I was talking about the wiretap, where they weren't listening in, but they were collecting who you talked to. They were collecting what you said, and they were collecting like the duration of the calls and where you were calling from and shit like that. So that was one of the things that he exposed. Another thing was Prism. I think we've talked about Prism, which collected just all your email content, your browser history. How does that make you feel that NSA is collecting your browser history?
A little dirty.
Yeah. It's like they're probably like, this guy's fucking gross.
Wow.
Like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? File transfers. And this was coming, according to Edward Snowden, they had contracts with Microsoft, Google, Apple, YouTube. There's some other ones. Skype. Your Skype calls were being tracked. All that stuff was just blanket tracked. Edward Snowden, the prime suspect number one, or public enemy number one.
Yeah.
Big bad dangerous nerd hacker Edward Snowden that needs to go away for espionage.
Yeah.
Exposed all the shit that was going on. But they're protecting our democracy.
Right. Yeah.
By doing all this stuff, they're protecting it. By stepping on your Fourth Amendment rights, by stepping on your right to privacy, your right to be able to just send out, make a phone call to somebody without somebody knowing who you're calling.
Yeah.
Protecting your democracy.
Right.
It goes back to, again, Inigo Montoya. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Right.
I mean, all this, then you look at what we talked about, protecting democracy leading into the 2020 election, where they had to like drag people's public perceptions. They had the whole game plan where they like war gamed it out, and if this was to happen, then we're gonna go do this, and because democracy needs protected.
Right.
Like democracy is so fragile that we need to use our emergency powers to curb some of the constitutional laws, like your constitutional rights, so we can protect
democracy.
Somebody from infringing on your constitutional rights.
Right.
So we can protect the Constitution by infringing on the Constitution.
We'll piss on your rights so we can save all of you all for the rights we'll let you have later.
How does that work? Like you infringe the Constitution to protect the Constitution.
Yeah. Yeah.
But who are you protecting it from at this point?
Yeah. To me, it sounds like a junkie trying to justify.
Right.
Oh, come on, man. It's okay. Just a little bit.
Again, like all that shit was like the laws. It doesn't even get into like the executive orders that have come out that just completely obliterate. Like as soon as a president or a governor or whatever leader says, you know what? I declare a state of emergency. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's just like, well, we just have all these resources at our hand and all these like massive overreach that at our disposal because it's a state of emergency.
Yeah. I mean, where does it stop at that point? Right? I mean, we saw how far they went in 2020, right? Lockdowns, masks, vaccines, they almost mandate it, you know?
Like I was saying, like emergency declarations do not protect democracy.
No.
They just don't.
No.
Like I was reading today, the oldest like recorded instance of emergency powers, like emergency protective powers, dates all the way back to the Roman Republic, the Republic of Rome. It's like they had the whole democracy thing figured out. They're like the birthplace of democracy, supposedly. And at times of war or whatever, what did they call the
centurions?
Just the legislatures.
Oh,
I can't think of what they're
senators.
called. Yeah, the senators would like relinquish some power to what you would, I guess, call some sort of like dictatorship type person to make those calls during the time of the war to get past the war. But it was only supposed to last, like they would put this guy in position, but he had to like leave that position after like 30
the fucking
days.
Emperor from Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But they'd be like, and it worked well for a long time.
Sure.
Like nobody abused the power for a long time until they started abusing the power, because they'd be like, you know what, we're going to give you the powers to get us through this time of war and make these decisions from your own kind of executive level, but that you got to retire from that after like so many like if you haven't completed the mission after X amount of days, then you are no good to us to begin with, and we'll find somebody else to do it in that amount of time. Yeah. Well, over time, that would get abused a little more and a little more and a little more, and then guess what happened to the Republic of Rome?
Right.
It turned into the Empire of Rome, like you were saying, the Star Wars Empire. Yeah. Like somebody was just like, fuck it, I don't want to give it back anymore.
I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
it works better this way.
Obviously, this is loosely explaining the fall of the Roman Republic, but in a nutshell, that was part of what led to his demise was, hey, emergency powers. Oh, it's emergency. Oh, this guy's attacking. It's emergency. Let's give up a little more power. And then, well, it's all an emergency. You get an emergency. You get emergency. We all get emergencies. And then it gets to the point where it's just like, well, we're still in a state of emergency. Sorry. It's just like, well, we told you 30 days. It's like, well, this one's going to last 60 or 90 or 90 years or whatever. Yeah. And fuck it. It's all gone.
Well, I mean, and look at every massive expansion of government in the United States history, right?
It's never gone back.
It's never gone back. From Roosevelt's Depression era, to now. It's like, they never shrink back. They always just keep expanding and building and growing on top of it.
I think it goes even further back than that.
Does.
I think even like Lincoln after the Civil War.
Well,
like,
Lincoln was locking up journalists and people that spoke out against him.
But it was all to
keep the Republic
it's good
together.
because he's Lincoln, right? He saved the Republic as we know it with these emergency abuses of the Constitution that we know. Or like the rebuilding, the restructuring, or whatever that happened after that. A lot of
Right. The reconstruction, yeah.
yeah, a lot of shit that just stomped all over everything. Grumpy Gnome says, I laugh every time I make my agent watch porn. And Derek says, TikTok. All the kids are on TikTok. I was trying to avoid saying TikTok, but then there's literally nothing else kids do these. There's no phone games. There's just TikTok. But yes, TikTok isn't even like, you don't even have to hit take my data. It's Chinese. They're just like, we know you're taking our data. Like, who fucking cares?
Freezing your back wall, taking pictures.
Yes. So back to COVID. I think it's fair to say, like you said, that emergency powers were slightly abused during COVID, especially across the board, but specific states abused them harder than others. Yeah. I would venture to say even Iowa abused their emergency powers by shutting down the fucking gyms as soon as I started going back to the gym. I mean, how many small businesses closed? We've done the numbers. I don't feel like going back to it. Yeah. How much of the freaking how many people's lives were just flipped upside down because they had to close their business, and the consolidation of wealth because of it to the mega corporations that were deemed, or what's the word that they deemed them?
Non-essential.
Because the small businesses were non-essential, but Walmart was essential, obviously.
Or the rapid, increase in the government again when all those small companies took PPP.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
To build onto to keep their companies running.
Exactly. We've talked about before that the COVID regime never would have existed if it wasn't for 9/11.
Yes.
Can you imagine if COVID had happened back in the 90s during the anti-government sentiment of the 90s, and COVID happened and they're like, you guys got to fucking lock down everything.
Yeah.
And wear masks. And they're like, you stand 6 feet apart from everybody and take these fucking shots. Yeah. Can you imagine?
Oh, yeah. No way.
It just wouldn't have happened.
Right.
And like 9/11 and set the groundwork for the mass government overreach that allowed us to get to 2020 where people are like, you know what, it's just for the good of the people.
Yeah, we gotta keep everybody safe.
We gotta flatten the curve. It's only gonna take what was it, 90 days to flatten the curve or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
2-3 fucking years later, and they're finally like, oh guys, guess what? We decided in the goodness of our heart that COVID is over, but a lot of that shit's still gonna apply.
Oh, and you got to get the vaccine because if you don't, you're gonna probably lose your job.
Grumpy Gnome says Washington taxed whiskey. Fuck George Washington if he taxed whiskey. Derek says, I don't know about other states, but the local health departments in Missouri closed down a lot of things, and none of those people are elected. I was more than a little pissed.
Absolutely.
Like it took, like here in Iowa, I feel like we got off easy, but I was still fucking pissed.
Oh, yeah.
I was pissed when what's the dumbass's name in the governor's office here, and she comes out and she's
Reynolds.
Yeah, she's like, oh yeah, everybody's like, oh, Governor Reynolds, she's like for the people, and she's gonna stand against this COVID regime, and then she's like, but we're gonna lock down shit. Yeah. It's not gonna be as long as like New York or California, but we are gonna lock down shit. And just some cities are gonna lock down shit too. Yeah. Just where you're in the red zone, we'll lock down shit. Emergency powers, the democracy.
Well, and then some school, like Iowa City, they wanted to keep shit closed down longer.
But yeah, they went. Like Iowa City was pissed when Governor Reynolds opened back up. Yeah. Some of the, I can't tell you how many Facebook posts I had read railing against fucking Reynolds for opening shit back up or not enforcing masking. Right. Yeah. The second year around.
Right, yeah.
The first year, remember, they were all fucking masked up.
Oh, yeah.
Unless they had religious exemptions my kids did, obviously.
But then forcing the schools to open, they were pissed at her for that because the schools didn't want to open in Iowa City.
But again, they kind of relinquished, they put an end to those emergency measures in May of this year. 2023,
Even
fucking
though
years
I still
later.
see people walking around with masks.
Well, what are you hearing now? That this fall,
it's coming back.
Mask mandates might be coming back. I've got this article. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's from USA Today. It's titled, Biden, COVID, and mask mandates are a timely test for the 2024 election. What's at stake? Do you think they come back? Do you think they try to like pre-election, try to say...
I think they try.
You think so?
Yeah.
You think he takes that chance?
I think he does.
You know what I mean? He might be that fucking dumb to be like,
I
oh,
think
the,
he is.
the American people love the mask. Let's
Yeah.
bring it back.
I do think some people in bigger cities, more on the left coast or whatever, will be like, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. We got to keep people
Well,
safe.
let's do it. Let's do it. Do you know why this is all coming back, right? Not for the masks.
Because of the election.
Because of we got to get people to do mail-in ballots again.
Right, because they manipulated it so well the first time.
Yeah, and I mean, we got to bring back COVID just in time for the election so people
Stay home.
have a reason to stay home and mail in their ballots, and we can stuff ballots again. It's just easier that way. It was so easy last time. Well, how can we convince people to continue to mail in their ballots? Well, let's just bring back COVID. I mean, it's fucking great. Yeah, you're hearing about all the COVID deaths that are happening right now, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah, absolutely.
Just so many hospitalizations
Absolutely.
and
It's
deaths and school kids just dropping and like having heart attack. Wait, that's not COVID. That's other unrelated jabby issues. This says a late summer surge in COVID-19 cases has meant the return of face masks in some parts of the country. You all are fucking idiots. To allow this to happen again.
Yeah. To be like, oh, shit, I better get my mask out again.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, it worked so great the last time.
Yeah. Even after there's been studies and articles that have come out that said masks don't do shit.
Well,
They're
I
still
just
gonna
saw
put their
one the
mask
other
on.
day that was talking about the studies of the medical problems that are
I read that too.
long-term effects from COVID masking.
Yeah.
And people are still like, oh, they said to do it. Don't worry, just put the mask back on my face and on my ears. To mask or not to mask? This is the question. Biden, who wore a face mask throughout the 2020 presidential campaign, was mocked by Donald Trump for doing so, donned a black face mask at a White House Medal of Honor ceremony Tuesday for a Vietnam War Army helicopter pilot. The day before the event, First Lady Jill Biden tested positive for COVID. Really? She has COVID now?
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
I mean, it was probably given to her by a syringe, but yes.
Probably. Biden has tested negative 3 times since the First Lady's positive test and has no symptoms, the White House said. He will continue to be tested and will wear a mask indoors when close to others, but no other change in White House protocols is planned. At another event Wednesday, Biden entered and left the White House state dining room with his mask in hand, not over his face. He explained that he had tested negative, but had been told to keep wearing the face covering. Don't tell them I didn't have it on when I walked in.
Question. What happens to the landscape if Joe Biden dies from COVID?
Jeez. Well, he's going to obviously drop out of the race. Maybe they're killing Jill Biden, so...
He won't drop out of the race. No, this will be his mission.
Oh, yeah, this will be like...
He's going to double down.
I lost a son in the war.
Yeah, and my wife to COVID.
And my wife to diphtheria or something. The resurgence of face masks as a political issue comes at the inconvenient time for Biden, or convenient time, who is focused on rebuilding the country in the post-pandemic era. At the same time, Biden is preparing for next year's re-election campaign. As local governments reinstate masking policies, Biden's approach to the question will be watched closely as voters still suffer from pandemic fatigue, decide whether to grant him another 4 years in office. Some Republicans, sensing a political advantage, already are taking a solid anti-masking stance. To every tyrant who wants to take away our freedom, hear these words: we will not comply, said Trump. So, I don't know. What do you think of these new mask things? You do think people will just do it?
I think some people will, yeah.
Again, 9/11 kind of like the aftermath of 9/11 made the U.S. citizens super passive to the massive government overstep, the massive government overreach. Made us like, they're just keeping us safe.
Right.
I mean, if they're keeping us safe, why not?
I'm not doing anything wrong.
Which led to the COVID regime.
Yes.
Because it's like, well, they're still, I mean, the terrorists are gone, but we got this disease, and the government says they're keeping us safe. It worked last time, so I'm not doing anything wrong. Why not wear a mask? You know, if it's good for the good of the people or the good of the whole, why not wear it? The government says so.
I don't want to kill grandma.
Then why not? Made us super fucking passive.
Yeah.
Like 90s era to 2020s era.
Yeah.
Would it have happened if it wasn't for
I
9/11,
agree.
making us so fucking passive? Do you think COVID did the same thing? Do you think it made us more passive, or do you think it?
No, I think it pissed people off.
You think it made, like the passive people? The passive people are already passive, but some of the people started fucking waking up. It's like, fuck this. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
What? That's stupid.
Right. That doesn't even make sense.
What? Like I gotta walk one way in a grocery store because of a germ? Because germs only walk in a single file line?
There's only
like,
a 6-foot limit to
like,
where a germ goes?
yeah. I feel like COVID kind of woke some up, but it also really solidified others in, well, they said it, it's the science community, and you're not a scientist.
Right.
How dare you question the science?
Yeah.
And those people, you're not gonna change them.
Right.
But there was there's a large portion of people that got super passive from 9/11 because the brown people supposedly attacked us, and because we want to save y'all from the brown people. Maybe it's just those people are fucking racist. It's like,
Probably.
the brown people are going to get you. Do what we say. Well, we don't like the fucking brown people. It's like, virus is going to get you. Do what we say. It's like, fuck you.
Yeah, right.
More scared of the brown people than a pandemic. I don't know
China.
what it is. But Chinese aren't really brown. They're not really white. I don't know what Chinese are. What color they are? Yellow? Do we still call them yellow? I don't know.
I don't think that's a thing anymore.
I don't know. I feel like people are kind of waking up. You get more of the pushback. You get like some more of the anti-government movements, but they're so infiltrated by the feds that are part of the freaking big massive surveillance thing that it's hard to even like entertain the idea of, hey, let's just join other like-minded people that really fucking hate this, because we've all come to realize they're all probably fucking feds anyway.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like they've made us all suspicious of our own kind,
right?
At this point, it's
I know. Whenever someone's like, "Man, I just wish I could find a group of like-minded people," I'm like,
you're a fucking
I don't know
fed.
anybody like that.
Yes. I don't know. What do you think? Like, COVID 3.0 or whatever.
Right.
How do you think that plays out? After you say some people have woke up and got pissed off.
I'll be honest. I don't think that the majority of the country is going to bite. I think the big city areas, the ones that are going to vote for Biden anyways, will go that way.
But do you think it's going to stop them from their emergency declarations and
no, they're still going to do it.
Power
and no, they'll still do it, and they'll still blame.
They'll find other ways to do it. They'll find other. I mean.
And they'll double down.
Yeah, they'll double down hard, and everything now is an emergency. Is a state of emergency to do whatever we want. Yeah. They found out that through COVID, that they found out all you got to do is declare a state of emergency, and you can do whatever the fuck you want to. And they will, and they'll just say, well, it's an epidemic.
Yeah, and
they're emergency.
Gonna keep trying to do that.
Yeah, it's break time, but that's going to get me into the second half. I want to talk about the shit with New Mexico and the governor of New Mexico declaring a state of emergency, a health emergency, because to stop people from carrying guns because of health in guns and disease, the disease of guns.
I think we called this one.
I am sure we have several times. The massive, guns are contagious, and we have to stop the curve.
I wish they were, man. Someone give me some guns.
We have to flatten the curve of guns, and it's only going to take 30 days this time.
Oh,
so
okay.
Flatten the curve of guns in 30 days because this health crisis that's happening. You see what we've gotten to because of 9/11, because of COVID, because of everything.
Yeah.
We have governors saying, "Oh, guns are a health crisis.
Yeah.
I declare a state of emergency because we've allowed them to have this fucked up amount of power."
Right.
We'll get into this in the second half. Derek says, "Did you know the government calls a group of like-minded people terrorists?"
That's true.
Yes, I did know that, and that's dangerous and scary. And that's why we are dangerous and scary, because we're like-minded, which makes us all terrorists. We're going to get into break. We're going to take 2 or 3 minutes. We're going to come back and talk about this New Mexico shit, and then we'll keep this party going.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back.
Take a moment and remember the feeling. When they called you not essential. When they dictated what you could do, where you could go, how you could breathe. It's disgusting, isn't it? And they're trying to do it again. We've seen what happens when the people lose control. When politicians and unelected bureaucrats make the big decisions on our behalf, whether we like them or not. When the choices are taken away from us one by one. We've seen what happens when they strip away medical freedom. When they trample on informed consent. When they dismiss our cries of justice. They laughed at us. They called us names.
Rest in peace, Wheezy.
Them, their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
And they shamed us for not going along with their every demand. Enough already. It's time to hold these tyrants accountable. In the midst of them trying to do it again, this wasn't a public health measure. This was an act of war against a peaceful people. But a reckoning is coming, and we're leading the charge. This campaign is for all of us. I'm asking you to join this movement that's for every single person who felt the crushing weight of mandates, the sting of being called unessential, the pain of having your liberties stripped away. I'm Joshua Smith, and I'm running because you are essential, and because our freedoms are non-negotiable. Not last time, not this time, not ever again.
I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good.
We faced the challenges. We felt the pain, but we're not defeated. Together, we have the power to create a brighter future, one where liberty thrives and tyranny dies. I endorse prosecuting the COVID tyrants and using Guantanamo Bay to lock them away for their crimes against humanity. In the face of all of this happening again, where they think we're stupid enough to fall for it, in 2024, a vote for me is a vote for vengeance. Go to joshuasmith2024.com to find out how you can help.
We're back.
Yes.
It's 9/11.
Yes.
So we're talking about the massive abuse of emergency powers,
Yes.
massive expansion of government under the guise of an emergency response,
Yep. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
obviously. We talked about 9/11 a bit. We talked about the Patriot Act. We talked about COVID, which I said we weren't going to talk about COVID, but we might talk about COVID. We definitely talked about COVID.
We definitely did.
What'd you think about that new Josh Smith video?
I like that.
It
You
kind of-
surprised me with that one.
I surprised myself.
Okay.
It kind of fit right.
It did.
Like what he was talking about with the COVID regime fits right into what we were talking about
Yeah.
with this
Yeah.
of massive government overreach.
Mm-hmm.
Vote Josh Smith 2024, and we won't have this problem. We're gonna get into, speaking of emergency powers and direct attacks on democracy. New Mexico's governor issues a 30-day ban on carrying guns in public in Albuquerque. And it's more than just Albuquerque, but specifically Albuquerque. me pull this one up. This is from New York Times, so you know it's fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah, I'm sure they're all in on this one.
Oh yeah. Let's go to the comments first before we get into this stupidity. Let's see. Nothing is loading fastly. So.
Did you say fastly?
Fastly.
Okay.
The executive order issued as a declaration of a public health emergency comes after several recent shootings of children. Critics call the step unconstitutional.
Little bit.
Gee, can't imagine why. Derek says it's an excellent video. I assume he's referring to the Josh Smith video.
I would think so.
Let's see.
Unless he was
let's
catching
see.
his agent up on porn.
That could be too. Governor Michelle Lujan Grissom of New Mexico announced a 30-day ban on carrying firearms in public areas or state property in Albuquerque and its county. A move, she said, was a necessary response to gun violence in the region, but critics denounce as unconstitutional. I wonder why would you suspect that they would think that was unconstitutional?
Yeah, it seems like they're reaching.
The ban was issued Friday as a declaration of a public health emergency, which Ms. Lujan Grissom said allowed the state to access different resources. She's like, I declared an emergency, so I have access to all these other powers, superpowers now. I mean, we saw it with COVID.
Yeah.
We saw it with, like, Gavin Newsom.
Yep.
It's like, no, I'm the governor. You wouldn't possibly understand that
you're not allowed to go home for Thanksgiving because...
Right, but I am, but you're not because I'm the governor, and I said so, and it's emergency.
Yeah. I know the science.
I mean, I understand that people die.
Yeah.
But does that make it a health emergency?
Well, do you ban people from driving in cars? I mean...
Don't give them any ideas, Bill.
Well, would that be a bad thing, though, right?
Exactly. Don't give them ideas.
Ban tornadoes, earthquakes.
I mean, you got it.
Ban fires. What,
Yeah.
2,000 people died
Exactly.
in Hawaii, right?
The executive order, which covers Bernalillo County, prohibits open and concealed firearms on state property, public schools, or public parks, with exceptions only for law enforcement and licensed security guards. Residents with gun permits can still have weapons on private property. While traveling with a gun, a person must transport it in a way that makes the firearm inoperable. In a lockbox or with a trigger lock, for example. Those who violate the order can be subject to fines of up to $5,000. Sounds like a risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah.
Miss Lujan Grissom, a Democrat, said she was spurred to action after several recent fatal shootings of children, including an 11-year-old boy who was killed outside a minor league baseball stadium this week in Albuquerque. Now, the question is the stadium public property or is that private property? Because it's not going to stop anything if it's on private property, because she knows that she can't do anything about fucking private property.
What was the gun acquired legally or illegally?
They're not getting into those specifics.
Of course,
That's not
yes.
relevant in this situation.
I know the details of this shooting, and I believe
I don't actually.
The gentleman who shot was also not legal.
Oh, okay. Well, two wrongs make a right, man.
Right?
At a news conference on Friday, she said the shootings have amounted to an epidemic, that the suspension allowed for a cooling off period for the state to figure out the best way to address gun violence and public safety. An epidemic. Now guns not only are a public health concern, they're an epidemic.
Yes.
Now, I looked up the definition of epidemic. I guess this is pandemic, but that's going to be close enough, right? Okay. I should have done epidemic, but I did pandemic.
We can still do
close enough. Pandemic. Jesus fucking Christ. Occurring, let's get into the noun versions of it. An outbreak of a disease that occurs over a wide geographic area, such as multiple countries or continents, typically affects a significant proportion of population. A pandemic outbreak of a disease. So an epidemic is a small-scale version of this. So
yeah.
Outbreak of a disease.
Yeah.
So the disease of guns.
Yeah.
The contagion of guns, because if you bump into somebody with a gun and come in within 6 feet distance, then you become a gun owner and a mass shooter as well. The epidemic of guns.
Yeah.
The other definition, an outbreak or product of sudden rapid growth or development. So that's number 2. Now, number 1 is very health concerned.
Right. Specifically
Health
calls
crisis.
it disease.
Yes, disease.
Yes.
Number 2 is a rapid spread or growth or development. Kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like metaphorically using the word epidemic,
Yes,
which is what
right.
she's kind of doing.
Yeah.
It's like like gun violence is spreading to epidemic proportions. That's called metaphor.
Right.
That is number 2, and I can see how it could fit in that definition metaphorically. If you think that gun violence is increasing dramatically, like they say it is,
Yes.
I could see how you would define it. Number 2, metaphorically, as a rapid growth of gun violence.
Yes.
The problem is you can't use the metaphoric definition, number 2, and apply it to the health, which, well, one of the definitions of epidemic is health-related, so we can call it a health crisis. But you are using the metaphoric definition of it, not the health definition of it. Yes, I get, again, people die, that's a health concern, but you can't just define this as an epidemic just because it fits your narrative. It's just like, well, it's an epidemic based on the metaphoric definition of epidemic, so we can declare this a health emergency. Right. That's not how this fucking works, because then we could say the epidemic of wokeism, we should probably ban that because it's an epidemic.
Stupidity.
Yeah. we got to curb to flatten the curve.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just call something an epidemic and just say, well, since I called it an epidemic, we can consider this now a health crisis, because epidemics are health-related based on definition 1, and metaphorically, definition 2, this is an epidemic. So we combine, mush them together, use our mental gymnastics, call this a health crisis, a health emergency, and we can declare a state of emergency now and have all these freaking resources at our disposal now.
And I feel like politicians have to use the mental gymnastics nowadays to get things to go.
I mean, that's the only way it fucking works. And if they do enough of it, you get dizzy and you stop asking questions because you passed out.
Right.
She talks about the cooling off period for the state to figure out the best way to address gun violence and public safety. So what this is using as much power as she can, because governors only have so much time allotted to their declarations of emergencies. As much she's delaying as long as possible so she can hopefully get gun laws passed is what's happening here.
Yes.
It's not a cooling off period.
No.
It's a delay.
Exactly.
So I can get something passed.
And if it works, you're going to see it across the board.
Derek says they should just make murder illegal. That'll fix things.
That would be a novel idea, but I think that would be too difficult to do.
Yes, I think so. Let's not get crazy now. She expected the suspension to be challenged in court and could not guarantee it would stand. She says, I welcome the debate and the fight about making New Mexicans safer. On Saturday, the National Association for Gun Rights, along with a member who lives in Albuquerque, filed documents in court suing her, seeking to block the enforcement. Yes, obviously people are going to block this. Obviously people are going to sue this because it's not right. Because there's so many implications going on here.
Yes.
Not even the fact that you're just smushing the Second Amendment now.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about the shitting on the Fourth Amendment all the first half. Now we're shitting on the Second Amendment.
Yes.
But the process to do so is just so fucked up. Like, well, we can't get laws to pass. Like, this whole checks and balance thing where you guys make laws, I sign the laws, and they can say if it's constitutional or not. Well, we can't get this passed, so I'm just going to declare a state of health emergency.
And chances are you wouldn't vote the way I want you to vote on this anyways.
So health emergency.
Right.
Health emergency expands my powers.
Yes.
You know where this fucking came from?
Yes.
The governors got power hungry after COVID. They're just like, you guys are governors. You can do whatever the fuck you want. It's like, especially in a health emergency. And she's like, it worked so well during COVID. We got them to do whatever the hell we wanted because of a health emergency. All I got to do is declare this a health emergency. Yeah. And if I call it an epidemic, obviously that wouldn't make it a health, because epidemic's a health term.
Absolutely.
And if it's an epidemic of gun violence, It's now a health concern of gun violence. Yeah, health emergency crisis.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the one right there. We got it. It's legally binding something.
Yes.
I don't know.
You think she checked with her AG at all to be like, do you think this would be okay? Or do you think she's just like, I don't care, I'm just going to do
She
it?
probably hired some fucking dumbass AG that would just like back whatever she said. She probably owns him. He's probably a pedophile or something. I don't know who he is. Don't come back and don't sue me. You'll get nothing. I wanted to read this. This talks about legislative oversight of emergency executive powers because we have representatives from the state that are just like, you can't do that. It's like, you have a job as a legislator to be like, fuck no, you're not doing that because you can't do that.
Yeah.
So this one talks, this is from legislative or ncsl.org. Says, in times of war, disease, and other extraordinary conditions, each state authorizes its governor to declare a state of emergency. Once an emergency has been declared, executive powers expand until the emergency ends. And that's the caveat there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't end the emergency like 9/11, like the Iran freaking kidnapping, whatever that was, like COVID. You don't end the emergency. You never have to give back the power.
Exactly.
It's perfect. The powers include authority normally reserved for legislators, such as the ability to suspend existing statutes or effectively create new laws, albeit temporary, and only as needed to respond to the emergency situation. Although governors need to be able to respond to the emergency quickly, legislatures have an important role in making sure these powers are not abused. And that they don't undermine the separation of powers vital to our democratic system of government. Legislatures exercise several types of checks on the state executive's emergency authority in ways that vary between states. However, some common features exist. Statutes defining executive authority during an emergency cannot be modified by executive order. Governors cannot promulgate emergency rules that grant themselves authority beyond the statutory limits. So a state gives governors certain emergency powers through whatever. They're just there. It's like if there's an emergency, you get the X amount of more power. Well, the governor can't come out and be like, I declare a state of emergency, and by doing so, I also make this law that grants me even more power than what the law that made me powerful to begin with.
Yeah.
So technically, they're not allowed to do that. Excuse me. As a result, legislatures have the authority to legislate firm limits on emergency executive power. Several states impose specific limits on the exercise of emergency powers. Common restrictions including prohibiting governors from limiting freedom of the press or confiscating citizens' firearms. So she didn't go as far as to take away their guns because she can't do that. She fucking can't do that. But she's like, but it's kind of like when Joe Biden come out and he's like, I'm going to make it so everybody has to mask up if you make me president. And then he's made president. He's like, I'm going to make everybody on Capitol ground or on state grounds wear a mask. And it's just like, you said you were making everybody mask up. It's like, well, I can't do that.
But on Capitol grounds, you better have a mask on.
But then why did you say it? It's like, well, you should have known that I couldn't do that. That's kind of what she's doing here. Let's see. Additionally, constitutional limits. Here you go. This is what you need to listen. Listen good. Okay. Put your phone away. Listen good. Additionally, constitutional limits on state authority and any guaranteed right remains in full effect during an emergency.
Okay.
So, constitutional limits on state authority.
Yeah.
What's that one constitutional limit on state authority that says no person shall not be impeded on? What was that amendment? Or like the Second Amendment, that's like nobody
shall not be infringed.
Infringed shall not by what state authorities.
Yeah.
So no constitutional limit on state authority. I feel like shall not be infringed is a limit on state authority.
Yeah.
I mean, other people question me on this.
No, yeah.
But I feel like that's a pretty cut and clear limit on state authority, and any guaranteed right.
which is
like
any
inalienable rights,
Yes.
like the Bill of Rights,
Yeah.
like the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Third Amendment, the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah.
Any guaranteed right remains in full effect during an emergency.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so she's blowing smoke. Well, and what I was looking up, the sheriff in that county that she's trying to says it's unconstitutional. So there's no way I'm going to enforce this order.
Right.
It's not going to curb. It does nothing to curb gun violence.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that at all.
And then the Republicans are trying to get her impeached.
Really?
Yeah.
No way. But the thing is, like, it shouldn't come down to like an impeachment procedure. It's like run her ass fucking out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's it. It's just like she's not doing her fucking job. Run her ass out.
The
So-
ACLU came out and said are objecting to it, but for a different reason. They feel like it's going to lead to overzealous policing and infringe on privacy.
No way.
Yeah, and it
No
may
way.
increase in racial profiling.
Yes, because that's the problem here. So obviously this is facing legal challenges. Apparently the legislators are trying to impeach her, but again, it's like you
Yeah.
have so much more that you could be doing.
Right.
Just stop listening to her. Just be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
New Mexico's ban on public carrying of firearms to face legal challenges. Now, you got to listen to this one good because this expands on her statements
Okay.
even more so. Says, on Friday, a public health order focused on gun violence went into effect in New Mexico. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham put the order in place, said the move was sparked by the death of an 11-year-old killed in a road rage incident this week in Albuquerque, along with other cases. The order says no person other than law enforcement should possess guns at public school or parks, that while transporting guns, they must be in a locked container or have a trigger lock. We already read that. God damn it. Why is this doing this? Says according... What is fucking going on? It keeps like reloading and like
It's got to be a local channel.
no person other than okay, it says according to those standards, Bernalillo County and Albuquerque are the only two places in the state right now that are under that part of the order. But Lujan Grisham said the order will likely face a legal challenge, as some would argue it's unconstitutional to not allow citizens to exercise the right to carry. Now this is where you got to listen good. This is a quote from the governor of New Mexico. I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute.
No. That's exactly what a constitutional
Now
is. It's cannot, as you said, cannot be infringed, and yes, you cannot.
Now, by today's standards, however, she's right.
Well, she's gonna
Like
try.
well, she's right. They're all fucking non-absolute. Like, I mean, how many rights get stripped from felons? How many rights get stripped from just people like with accusations on them?
Right.
Like, how many rights? I mean, the state of emergency, like post 9/11, how many rights got smashed besides even just the Fourth Amendment? How many rights got smashed during COVID? Yes, she's absolutely right. Nothing in the Constitution clearly is absolute because we can just give it all up and they can just take it away and we're like, fuck it, fine, it's for our own safety. Or like felons don't have the right to vote. Like they're all the shit that she's saying by today's standards are absolutely 100% correct.
Right.
None of it's absolute because we don't make it absolute. However, if you go by this old fucking standard of inalienable rights, which is what where is that written? Is that like in the Constitution? Yeah. The definition of inalienable rights means it cannot be taken away. Unable to be taken away. Another word for inalienable is what? Absolute.
Yeah.
Those rights are absolute. The Constitution, based on the founders, was absolute. shall not be infringed, like you said. So for her to come out and fucking say, well, in my view, nothing in the Constitution is absolute. Then why do we even have a fucking Constitution?
Right. Yeah.
Yes, it can be changed and amended. Sure, I guess that makes it
Right. But there's a process.
absolute. Yeah,
There's a process.
it's not an by executive order based on an emergency
not
fucking
because
thing.
some dumb shit sitting in the chair in New Mexico thinks that guns are dangerous and this might stop it. So this is what I'm going to say because I don't know shit.
So, again, based on that, do you have the right to impeach this woman or just run her ass? Again, run her fucking ass out.
Yes.
Like, if you're a
For
legislature.
being stupid as fuck.
Like that last thing, it's like the legislatures have kind of a checks and balance system, even on emergency powers. It's like, if you're a legislator in that state, you should be running her ass out. And if you're not willing to do that, we'll fucking run your ass out too.
Yeah, absolutely. People of New Mexico should be pissed as hell about
they
this.
should be, but
yes.
they don't fucking care.
Well, they should be.
What are we
because
looking at here?
I don't know what that is.
Just
but
stuff.
yeah, they need to kick her ass over to California.
The thing is this, it's like you get these governors, like, for example, Gretchen Whitmer, that decide to abuse fucking power. It's like, doesn't even matter. It's like the people, if people were to come out and be like, we want your ass out of here. Well, another Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot comes up. Right. And, I mean, I love the guy, Brandon Caserta, but that didn't go far enough. I'm not saying they should have kidnapped her and murdered her or whatever, but the whole trial, and then everybody's like, oh, this is all just a big misunderstanding. We were not. Fucking run their ass out and then stand up for it and be like, no, we want her ass out of here. And yes, I'm going to be on a list for this because I'm a terrorist. It's like, what do you do in this situation where it's just like, it's an emergency?
Yeah.
Your rights aren't absolute, and this is an emergency, and we don't fucking care.
Yeah. No, fuck
like,
that.
We just don't care.
Our rights are absolute.
The problem, another issue that might bump into legal issues, like trying to challenge her, is New Mexico's constitution. I looked in their Second Amendment rights in their state constitution, and it actually specifically says, it says, right to bear arms for protection and for hunting and for sportsmanship. This does not include the right to concealed carry. So that is actually written in their constitution. Okay. So they might have fucked themselves by signing that into their state constitution, but still, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like the federal constitution
trumps
the state.
Yeah.
And didn't New York just lose something in the Supreme Court along these same lines? It's like, no, you can't fucking do that because it goes against the Second Amendment.
Yeah. And if New York's doing it, then New Mexico should be able to do it.
And so New Mexico is like, fuck you. I feel like there might be a precedent set now based on New York that they can just be like, that's not going to fly. Yeah. And then they should kick her ass out. Yeah. They shouldn't just shoot it down. They should kick her ass out.
They need to make an example of her.
She's like, that oath that I swore, I put my hand on the Bible, whatever, swore to protect and preserve, blah, blah, blah.
Foreign and domestic.
Which protect and preserve the Constitution against foreign domestic. But, A, the thing that I made an oath to protect, that's not absolute. And B, the oath that I made to protect the thing that's not absolute, that's not even absolute either. So does she not know what a fucking oath is even? Yeah. She doesn't know what a constitution is. Not. She doesn't know what an alienable means. And she doesn't know what an oath fucking means.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. But that's I think we're at the point now where it's time to get pissed. And it's time to make example of politicians that are trying to infringe our inalienable rights, and they need to be kicked out of office.
They need ran the fuck out of town, like 1800 style. Like,
people need to start paying attention to this shit because they're going to keep trying to pull the same things over and over again.
I mean, is tar and feather, is that allowed these days?
There's nothing that says it can't be done.
It's not. It's not illegal. So the real epidemic. The real epidemic is not the gun violence.
Yeah.
The real epidemic is the emergency power. And I'm not talking just metaphorically. There's way too much emergency power here. I'm talking like contagious epidemic of emergency power. Like we were saying, it started with 9/11, and then that overstep allowed us into the COVID regime, abuse of power, and then that freaking power-hungry, giving government officials just blanket power over our entire being based on a health emergency. Now we get to, like, state by state, like, flare-ups here and there where it's just like, you know what, health crisis. I can just undo everything. Like, I can just make rules because of its health crisis. And the Constitution, in my oath, is not absolute. So
we're gonna put a wall around the state, and no one's allowed to leave.
And I don't even know what her context really was, based by saying, in my understanding, the Constitution and my oath isn't absolute. Do you think that's going to come back and bite her in the next election?
I think so.
I mean, anybody that runs against her, all they got to do is put, like their slogan is, absolute is absolute, or something,
so
like that.
Grisham doesn't think that the Constitution is absolute.
Yes, exactly. I want to get into this last one. This is from Zero Hedge. It says, are emergency powers a test to see what Americans will put up with? I don't even know if it's a test anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it. Yeah.
Like, I think, because we had said that about COVID-19. It's like, this is just test to see what shit we'll put up.
The next
they
big
already
thing.
know what we'll fucking put up with and who won't put up with it. We're on lists, the people that won't mask up, the people that didn't get vaccines. We're all on fucking lists. They already know this shit.
Yeah.
But I do want to read this article just to kind of close things up, wrap things up. This will be a little bit shorter. Maybe, if we don't keep itching too long. We'll see. Are emergency powers a test to see what Americans will put up with? During the hysteria of the COVID pandemic, questions swirled around how the federal government would respond to events under the declaration of a national health emergency. What kind of powers would they claim to have, and which constitutional rights would they try to suppress? All of them, if they can, probably.
Yes.
Because none of them are absolute. What many Americans didn't consider, however, was the implementation of emergency power under state governments rather than the White House. Most of the COVID mandates crushing the U.S. economy during the period were not federal mandates, but state mandates. And there's a good reason why COVID tyrants chose to focus on state-level restrictions. There are a number of requirements and obstacles for any president seeking to enforce mandates at the federal level, along with more scrutiny and oversight than is commonly understood. Though a president can declare emergencies unilaterally, there are still some legal checks and balances. To be sure, these are quietly being eroded with each passing year. Let's see. On the other hand, state governors in 44 states have sweeping authorities under emergency conditions with very little immediate legal recourse. As we have seen in places like Hawaii and now New Mexico, Democrat governors have been playing with fire, no pun intended, as they seek to push the envelope on emergency control at state levels. In Hawaii, the exploitation of state emergency provision under Governor Josh Green led to possibly thousands of deaths as they refused to release water supplies for firefighting and even blocked Maui residents, forcing them back into the blaze. They have even put an information blackout in place and denied news organizations access to the scene of the disaster. One has to ask, was this done out of stupidity, or was this a test to see what kind of trespasses and controls citizens would accept? In New Mexico, we see a similar extreme overstep by Governor Michelle Grisham, who believes she has the authority to dictate the Second Amendment rights of Albuquerque residents due to rising crime. The level of mental gymnastics on display in her argument to justify the banning of lawful open carry and concealed carry protections make it clear this is not about protecting the public. The lack of logic and reasoning indicates that this is an ideological decision based on zealotry. Watch as she struggles to present any reasonable position. I'm not going to even watch it. I don't fucking want to hear her. It says, let's see. The root of her argument is, I am banning legal firearms carry in Albuquerque because under emergency powers I can. That's it. That's all she's got. But this is not a valid argument, and there are a number of reasons why. First, crime is rising across the nation, predominantly in Democrat-controlled cities. Albuquerque has a Democrat mayor, and New Mexico is a Democrat-run state. If crime is rising, it's the fault of Democrats. That's a stupid fucking argument that I'm tired of hearing, but sure. But instead of taking responsibility for their terrible planning and policies, Democrat leaders are once again blaming inanimate objects, guns, and using mass punishment of people who lawfully carry, primarily conservatives. In other words, Democrats are ruining the country and creating a national crime wave and then making conservatives pay for it with their rights. Second, restrictions on open carry and concealed carry are not going to reduce crime rate because criminals don't care about laws or emergency powers. Would you have guessed?
No.
Again, that goes back to what Derek was saying about could we just make murder illegal? And then that ends all gun murders. Derek says, in their defense, lead poisoning is a serious medical concern.
That's true.
There you have it, I guess. If anything, violent crime will rise as criminals feel emboldened knowing most citizens are now disarmed. Third, Grisham has presented no evidence of a legitimate emergency other than crime is bad right now. The emergency is ambiguous rather than defined. But they love ambiguous definitions of crises.
Yes.
Because the more ambiguous it is, the longer we can stretch this shit out. It's just like when with COVID, it's just like, well, there's COVID-1, then there's COVID-2, then there's super COVID and Omicron COVID and COVID Omega. 2.0 and now I don't even know if are they even naming it anymore.
Yeah, I think it's just COVID now.
Or ambiguous.
Yeah.
We're going to fight a war on terrorism.
Because they hate our freedom.
So we're going to fight. Well, we're going to start in Afghanistan, and then we're going to move to Iraq, and then maybe we'll move to Iran. It's just wherever the terrorists go, man.
Right. Yeah.
That's where it. And if you harbor a terrorist, you're also a terrorist. So we can fight you too.
If you're not with us, you're against us.
Yes. Ambiguous.
Yeah.
The most ambiguous fucking war.
Yeah.
The war on terror. It's just a war on a thing, on an idea.
Yeah.
It's not a war on people.
Right.
It's just a war on an ideology or something. I don't fucking know. Ambiguity makes emergency powers indefinite.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you don't define something,
right. Yeah.
Then you don't have
whatever
to.
You want it to be.
If there's no clear definition, you can just keep moving. It's like, well, we never said that we were going to stop the war on terror when we were done in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Because now the terrorists have moved to Iraq.
Yeah. Yeah.
It says the emergency is ambiguous rather than defined, meaning emergency restrictions could be renewed over and over and over again unless citizens step up and do something. Kind of like 9/11 emergency declarations or COVID declarations. Fourth, the focus on open carry and concealed carry seems to be an attempt at a totalitarian tiptoe. Wow, that's alliteration.
I like it.
A large number of gun owners do not carry regularly, so they may not feel personally affected by the rules. I'm not doing anything wrong. Who fucking cares? Meaning the governor has reduced the level of opposition by attacking just one aspect of gun rights. This is usually how authoritarians institute control. They don't remove your rights all at once. They do it a piece at a time. It's like boiling a frog. Fifth, gun carry laws are generally a legislative decision that usually requires a public vote. Grisham is attempting to bypass all checks and balances as if the legislative process doesn't matter because she doesn't fucking care. 6, emergency powers are often declared unconstitutional by courts after the fact. For example, Michigan Supreme Court held the Emergency Powers of the Governor Act, which Governor Whitmer used to justify her draconian COVID-19 executive order and nearly get kidnapped, was unconstitutional because it delegated legislative power to the executive branch in violation of the Michigan Constitution. But these court decisions often come well after the damage has already been done. It is up to the citizenry to defy such orders when necessary, as I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Run her ass out. Don't wait for the courts to do it. Don't wait for your legislators to do it. Run her fucking ass out. Stop listening to her. If she won't leave, I'm not pushing the use of force or kidnapping.
But you can do it in a way of nonviolence.
Just fucking don't listen.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all. You just mass noncompliance. That's all you got to do. And she'd be like, "But I'm the governor and I have powers." It's like, you don't if we don't. Yeah, just fuck your power.
Yeah.
7th. Grisham argues that rising crime is a public health emergency, using the same language relegated to the COVID response. So like I was saying, if 9/11 didn't happen, COVID never would have happened. If COVID never happened,
this shit wouldn't happen.
This shit never would have happened.
Because we're going to see a lot more of this shit.
Yeah, she's just regurgitating the same language that was used during the COVID.
Yep. I'm sure we'll see it from Gavin Newsom.
Oh, yeah. Says crime has nothing to do with public health and is a legal concern handled through either social programs or increased police presence. Disarming the public is not within the purview of a health emergency. Grisham has greatly overstepped her bounds. The timing and tone of the state government decision on gun carry in Albuquerque reads like a political maneuver, a test to see what the public will submit to. Grisham admits she expects numerous legal challenges to her decision, but she does not seem too concerned with public reaction. Maybe she should be. Or she's so certain that the New Mexico Second Amendment community will sit on their hands that she feels comfortable there will be no protests, no open carry marches, and no public defiance or non-kidnapping plots to be concerned about. One thing is inevitable. If Grisham is unopposed in New Mexico, numerous Democrat governors and mayors across the country will try to enforce the exact same emergency powers.
I'm sure the FBI is trying to devise a kidnapping plot right now.
I mean, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe this is just another fucking stupid-ass stunt by the government to amp up the freaking the
right wing
Second Amendment type, like pro 2A people, so they could say the pro 2A people and like orchestrate some sort of stupid domestic terrorist event or with thwarted domestic terrorist event leading into the 2024 election to say, oh, look at all these domestic terrorists because of this. I mean, does she really think this is going to freaking fly?
Yeah, I can't imagine she would.
But she can be certain that a lot of people will be fucking pissed. And if they're not willing to step up and do something, enough people will believe.
Yeah.
If we orchestrate a false flag event and be like, well, obviously they did this because they're pro 2A and she made these gun laws. So obviously they tried to murder the fucking governor of New Mexico. So I don't know. I just now got that inclination that maybe this isn't about so much the guns as much it is about the domestic terrorism leading up to 2024 to be like, well, look at, we can't allow another Trump thing because look at all these Trump supporters and they tried to kidnap another one.
You know, they have to. I mean, look at what they're trying to press charges against, or they've indicted Trump, all this other stuff, but his popularity is still going up. Okay, you can't get the man, you go after the people, right? You try to villainize the supporters, right? A bunch of deplorables.
How do we stop this epidemic of emergency powers?
People need to they need to get fucking pissed.
Chemotherapy.
And make moves.
Chemotherapy. That's the only way to stop it.
Are you saying nuke them?
Just take it for what it is. Chemotherapy helps the diseases. Just takes them all out.
Yeah.
That's just chemotherapy. That's what we need for this epidemic.
No, people need to start getting pissed.
Josh Smith is chemotherapy.
I'm down with that.
Josh Smith will take them all out. Vote Josh Smith 2024.
For chemotherapy.
For chemotherapy. Vote for vengeance. Vengeance. I mean, it's a vote for Josh is a vote for vengeance. Vengeance.
Yes.
Like, people need to be fucking held accountable.
Yes.
Like, this whole, well, we gotta, what was it after people started kind of realizing that all the COVID shit was made up, and then they're like, well, we gotta have room for, like, just kind of acceptance and love and blah, 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 and we can we just let bygones be bygones? It's like, where the fuck was that?
Yeah, right.
When we were saying, I'm not going to take your vaccine.
When you were saying that we should not be able to keep our jobs.
You shouldn't keep they were taking kids from freaking parents.
Yes.
Because he wouldn't let them get vaccinated.
And now you want to let bygones be bygones?
Yeah.
No,
fucking vengeance. Yeah. Fuck you. Fuck you and your bygones.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And by not declaring chemotherapy or vengeance, this cancer is going to spread. Yeah. Just like it said, if it's not checked, and it's not going to be checked in time for the courts to do anything about it before shit really gets out of hand. Yeah. It's not going to be checked in time for the legislators to decide, you know what, we probably shouldn't let that happen. No, the people need to fucking do it.
Yes.
And because if it, again, left unchecked, it's New York's going to follow. California's going to follow.
Michigan,
Colorado. I mean, the states that already have
Iowa
the
City.
strictest gun laws on the books anyway
Yeah.
are going to follow suit and be like, oh, that worked for them. Let's do it. Let's try that here.
Yeah. But and you've brought up a good point tonight is that when you look at 9/11, you should look at 9/11 as the day that the government started shitting on your rights.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't the beginning of it.
Well, no,
but
that's when
a
they
mass shit. It
exactly.
was like the mass.
It was
mass
a massive shit.
Yeah.
It was like a Taco Bell.
It was
shit.
like little chits here and there,
Yeah.
and people were like, you know what, I'm not gonna take your shit, and then all of a sudden it's just like,
yeah,
boom.
Yeah, because they used our patriotism and our need for safety.
It's hilarious. So ironic that they used our patriotism as such a grand thing to bring us all together, and now they use patriotism as a derogatory term to say, you're just a fucking terrorist. You're a patriot.
But it's the same way as, after 9/11, how police and firemen and EMTs, they were heroes, and now police are like the villains.
Well, obviously. Right? I mean, unless they're protecting the people that are trying to put...
Yeah. So, I mean, it's taken a 180, but, it's been 22 years since 9/11, and people need to start getting pissed.
Oh, we should have been pissed a long fucking time
we should have
ago.
been. We should have been, because they keep pushing the goalposts.
But at some point, we got to get pissed.
Yes.
And I'm not going to wait for it to get to my door.
No, because it's already gone too far.
Yeah, and and we've said it before, if you're one of those people that's just like, I'll just say I lost my gun in a boating accident. They've already fucking won.
Right.
Because that's your fucking right to own that inalienable, shall not be infringed.
Yeah.
At what point do we say, shall not be infringed?
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't mean, I can just keep it if I say I got in a boating accident. No, because then you're one step away from being like, oh, you're right, I lied here. No, you just fucking, you have a gun because you can have a gun.
Yes.
Because
it's your right.
It's your inalienable right. You want something? You want to change that? I guess burn the whole fucking system down that this was built on, and we'll start over. Fine. But you better burn it all down.
Yeah.
Burn it all the fuck down. We're not just going to light the Constitution up. We're going to light it all up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
Vote for Josh Smith. That's the solution, I guess. That's all I got. Do you got anything else to add to this wonderful 9/11 celebration?
No, that's good.
You think we should get out of here?
Yeah, I think so.
Make sure you check us out all over the social medias because we're on the social medias.
I'm glad you decided not to get into the Mitch McConnell stuff.
Yeah,
because
he's a fucking turtle.
Yeah, well, I mean, talking about this gets you fired up enough. You throw his stupid ass in the mix.
Yeah, it's like reading through all this. I'm like, fuck Mitch McConnell. He can keep having his strokes. I don't care. He's like a minor part of the problem right now.
Except for the fact that, and I looked it up, there's 55 senators serving that are over the age of 65.
That's ridiculous.
That is.
That's ridiculous.
That is.
How many are over the age of 80?
Yeah, right.
I mean...
Well, Pelosi just filed papers to run again, and she's going to be 83.
I thought she was gone. I thought she left.
She's just not the House leader anymore.
God, go the fuck away.
I know.
We got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Check us out over social media. You can find us at our handle at BreakTheBellPod on X and Facebook. I'm never going to take that seriously. You can also go to our webpage at breakthebellpod.com, find access to everything that we do, especially the old shit since I haven't updated it in a while. Find access to our web store and buy cool shit and look awesome and support us in the process. We'll be back next week as long as we're here.
Yeah, well, summer's over.
Summer is over. I think things are finally
yes,
coming to a balance, maybe.
It is.
So make sure you join us next week. If you're listening in podcast land, we do this shit live some Monday nights, if not on a Tuesday night. Yeah. We'll just say Monday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Join us. Join in the chats. The comment section's always open. Like, share, subscribe, all that shit we tell you to do every week. Just do it. Just fucking do it.
Check out some of our older shows. We got good stuff.
Yeah, go back and watch last year's 9/11 show.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll catch you next week. Have a great 9/11 and rest of your week. We'll catch you later. Goodbye.
The Break the Bell podcast is brought to you by you. So pat yourself on the back because without you, we would be talking to ourselves. A special thanks to our Patreon members, Justin Zielinski, Remzo Martinez, Stephanie Parker, and T.O. Jacobson. A shout out to our sponsors, Run Your Mouth Coffee, the On the Run podcast, and Goulash Media. If you'd like to help support us, visit patreon.com/breakthebell or buy our garbage at breakthebell.bigcartel.com. Get back here next week and let us continue to invade your ear holes. And as always, never stop talking.